to see you. My partner Gracia and I will be discussing the difference between oil prices around the world.
That's right, George. So that's right, George. So first we have your segment. What are you gonna talk to us about today?
Sure. On our first segment, we'll discuss the Chinese expectations about natural resources and oil expectations and energy expectations for the next years. Um, yeah, sure. Well, we will start with this. On our first segment, as I told you, we'll discuss about the Asian expectations for the next years. So there's a problem in Asia. What's going on in Asia? We're having a couple of troubles over there, having really low expectations for the prices of oil, gas, and coal. This is the first time in the century that actually the oil prices contracted. Coal demand also had a several contraction. Um, but though the demand for oil grew just a bit, but not as expected to be. What China is going to face in the next years, it's going to be a really low expectations of the output and demand of the economy in this sector. This lack of consumption in the energy sector could have a far-reaching consequences in the oil production and gas markets around the world. Mm, This will lead the energetic sector around the world into a kind of crisis. We'll have some problems around the world in the oil prices and natural gas prices. Mr. Tao Wang said Mr. Tao Wang is actually the CEO of the Resident Scholar Energy and Climate Program uh, at the Carnegie Tsuga Center for Global Policy in Beijing. He's actually doing some comments about the problem. He expects actually he's having a low expectations for the next years. Um, he expects a really low demand for these natural resources. Um, he also added that China will have to face this downturn for the next around 10 years in the future. Um, and he also said that energy will grow much lower than before due to these problems in the Chinese economy.
George, so what do you think Chinese citizens think about this?
Well, they're really mad at this because they're actually not mad at this. The problem is that China is having a really strong war against pollution. So they're trying to have their energetic consumptions really low. So that's something good for for the whole country in terms of the ecological terms. But they're gonna face some problems around with the oil prices and natural gas prices.
And that's good because I actually heard I actually read an article recently about Chinese pollution that it takes almost 3 months for the air in China to travel to the western coast of America and Mexico. So that should be really interesting for the rest of the countries in the world, don't you think?
Yeah, I really think so. But moreover, I think Chinese people would be getting a lot of prices in their bills, in the natural gas bills specifically. So let's talk about the next segment. My partner Grecia will tell you more about it.
Well, hi everybody. On our next segment, we actually have a Middle East country. It's Saudi Arabia, and little of what we know of Saudi Arabia is that they're really protective over their markets and the way you want to enter it. They're really protective. They're really protective about their land. They are #1 exporters in crude oil. So, what we're going to be talking about today specifically is around that subject. Why? Because recently Saudi Arabia has launched recently, as in last December, they decided to launch an oil project, which including just producing crude oil. And what this had, what this impacted on was that it became a surplus and it expanded and served as notice to other higher cost countries such as the US, Venezuela, and Russia, that they would not prop their market or their profit margins in expenses of other markets. So they just started producing and producing and producing. They, regardless of what anybody told them, and they thought what they thought was going to be a good plan actually backfired. Why? Because as they started producing more, the prices of the barrels of oil went down, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in all parts of the world, especially here on the western side. And you know, George, adding roughly 300 million barrels in total is what we will be producing each day. So what that's going to do is, the more we produce this oil, or the more Saudi Arabia produces the oil, it's gonna make prices go way down. And how do you think that will affect Mexican economy?
Well, I think Mexican economy would get in a real problem over there, because if they're producing, too much, they don't have the money to back up that production.
Exactly, and you know, since us as a country, Mexico, you know, the majority of our exports is actually oil. So if there's a bunch of production and no demand, well, we all know what happens. Prices go way down. So if nobody's buying and we're producing a lot, that means our market is going to be overflown, and it's only going to cause prices to tumble way, way more. And if insecurity has recently been a part of Mexican lifestyle, investments will totally just fly away from Mexico, because there is no money, because all of our money comes from oil, and there will be no investment. These two things will definitely be bad for Mexican economy. And well, you know, we finished. Do you guys have any questions?